The Pisa-class was a group of 3 armoured cruisers built in the early 20th century, comprising the Italian ships Pisa and Amalfi, and the third vessel, originally intended for Italy but completed for the Hellenic navy as Georgios Averof. Ordered in the mid-1900s as part of Italy's naval expansion, the ships were laid down between 1905 and 1908, entering service between 1909 and 1911. They were conceived as powerful, fast and heavily armed cruisers, capable of operating both independently and as part of a battle fleet. The Pisa-class displaced approximately 9,800 to 10,000 tons at standard load. Rising slightly higher at full load, they measured around 140 metres in length, with a beam of just over 21 metres. Powered by vertical triple expansion steam engines fed by coal-fired boilers, they were capable of speeds of around 22 to 23 knots and carried a complement of roughly 650 officers and men. Crucially, they also possessed a respectable operational range, approximately 2,500 to 3,000 nautical miles at cruising speed, allowing for sustained operations across the Mediterranean and beyond. Their armament was unusually heavy for ships of their size, with 4 10-inch or 254mm guns in 2 twin turrets, 8 7.5-inch or 190mm guns in 4 twin turrets, with numerous secondary guns, and an arbour protection which included a substantial belt along the waterline, armoured turrets and barbettes, and some protected deck sections. Altogether, this gave them a level of protection closer to smaller battleships than traditional cruisers. The class was designed to fulfill a multi-role function within the Italian Regia Marina. Their roles included acting as fast fleet units alongside battleships, engaging and overpowering enemy cruisers, conducting independent patrol and strike operations, and projecting power across the Mediterranean. They were, in effect, designed to sit between cruiser and battleship, fast enough to operate independently, but powerful enough to influence fleet actions. This reflected a broader naval trend of the time, pushing cruisers towards greater size, firepower, and survivability. Crucially, however, the Pisa-class were designed and built during a period of rapid and fundamental change in naval warfare. While these ships were under construction, 2 major developments emerged with the launch of HMS Dreadnought and the introduction of the battlecruiser, beginning with ships like HMS Invincible. These new types emphasized uniform heavy armament, greater engagement ranges, and higher speeds combined with capital ship firepower. In comparison, the armoured cruiser, no matter how advanced, was increasingly caught between 2 roles. The Pisa-class pushed the type to its limits, but the limits themselves were shifting. Amalfi was the only one of the class to be lost in World War I, when after the completion of a mission in July 1915, around 23 miles from Venice, she was torpedoed by the Austrian submarine U-26. Actually, U-26 was the German submarine UB-14, marked as an Austrian vessel and flying the Austrian flag, since Italy and Germany were not actually at war, and was under the command of Oberleutnant zur See Heino von Heimberg on her first patrol, an example of the threat posed by submarines in naval combat. The Italian ships Pisa and Amalfi served primarily in the Adriatic and Mediterranean during World War I. Their duties included fleet support and patrol operations, escorting convoys, and maintaining pressure on Austro-Hungarian naval forces. Georgios Averos, meanwhile, saw far more direct combat during the First Balkan War and the Second Balkan War. She played a decisive role in the Battle of Ely and the Battle of Lemnos, where her superior speed and firepower allowed her to dominate Ottoman forces. Her service provides one of the clearest examples of how effective the type could be when employed decisively. At their peak, the class were among the most capable armoured cruisers afloat. Strengths, heavy armament for cruiser operations, strong armour protection, good speed, operational flexibility, and crucially sufficient range for regional power projection. However, the limitations were complex fire control due to mixed calibers, increased competition from newer designs like battlecruisers, and vulnerability to submarines and other threats. They were powerful ships, but increasingly operating in a changing naval environment. Of the 3 ships, well, as just mentioned, Amalfi was sunk by a submarine in 1915. Pisa survived the war and was later scrapped in the 1930s. And Georgios Averof enjoyed an exceptionally long service life and is preserved today as a museum ship in Athens. Her survival makes her one of the last remaining armoured cruisers in existence. The Pisa-class armoured cruisers represent a confident and highly capable design, one that pushed the cruiser concept to its practical limits. They combine speed, firepower, and protection in a way that made them formidable in their intended roles. But of course, they were also built at a moment of transition as naval warfare shifted towards larger, faster, and more specialised capital ships. The space occupied by ships like the Pisa-class began to narrow. Even so, taken on their own terms, they weren't really compromises, but expressions of a design philosophy that had reached its peak.